Well, here we are again with another gaming phone. Gaming phones are usually the coolest phones, and some of my favorites, because they push the limits with both design and specs, both of which can obviously be utilized by everyone, even if gaming isn't your main thing. I didn't really know Lenovo made smartphones until now. I did use one of their laptops all through college though, so they have been around for a long time. Opening up the box, we get our first glimpse of the phone. Lenovo sent me their Legion Phone Duel 2 to check out, with a box that's surprisingly optically stabilized. Already innovative. I like it. Inside the box we get dual USB-C cables and a charging brick that has dual USB-C ports. I'm beginning to see why they call this the Duel 2. When both ports are plugged in and used at the same time, we can apparently juice up the phone with 90 watts of power. I'll get to that more in a second. The phone is resting on one more box. I'll pull them both out, and in here we get a little headphone jack adapter, as well as a thin, clear plastic case. And finally, the phone itself. This is one of the most unique looking phones we've seen in a while. It's got curves in the weirdest places. I'm looking forward to this one. Let's get started. Right off the bat, this phone feels like a solid chunk of brick. It's heavy, thick, and long, with a very strange abnormal growth in the center. Apparently, this center hump is for the brains of the whole operation, while the dual batteries are off in the wings. In the hump, we've got the center-mounted cameras, as well as the RGB LEDs, and most importantly, the dual fans. We've seen one fan before in a cell phone, in the red Magic gaming phones, but not two. Taking apart this Duel 2 should be pretty interesting. But first things first, the scratch test. I have a set of Mohs mineral picks that help differentiate between different minerals and materials, and every now and then we have a phone slip into the system that's hiding under a plastic screen protector. It doesn't take too long to figure out that this Duel 2's incredibly unique anatomy might come with some issues. Normally, the camera bump is up top, so the phone rocks left and right, but this time around with the camel hump in the middle, the phone is rocking top to bottom like a giant seesaw. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I could see it getting a little annoying trying to one-hand type a message while the phone is laying on a flat surface. It'll bounce around like a bobblehead. Finishing up the scratch test, we see that the screen is made from tempered glass by its scratches at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7. This is the part where we normally go find the front-facing camera, but as you can clearly see, this phone does not have one, at least not where we would normally expect it. It's got a side-mounted motorized pop-up camera hidden underneath the power button. I didn't see that one coming. It's a loud little guy. Apparently, it's here on the side so that gamers can live stream themselves playing games while the phone is being held horizontally, and it makes quite a bit of sense. And since the camera is motorized, it's not taking up any pixel real estate inside that display. Pressing the power button, which is now extended up into the air, still turns off the screen and retracts the camera. It's kind of weird if you want to take normal vertical selfies, of course, but definitely not a deal breaker. The lens on the front of the camera is made from glass and is scratch resistant, and impressively has 44 megapixels. The camera also has fall protection, which we've seen on other pop-up camera smartphones, where it tries to retract before hitting the ground, if it's ever dropped. The large earpiece speaker grill is made from plastic and won't be falling out on its own. It's also one of a pair, dual loudspeakers on a phone where everything is dual. The bottom stereo speaker grill is also made from plastic. The right side of the phone is made from metal, and there's a whole lot going on. No mechanical pop-up buttons like we saw on the Black Shark 3 gaming phone, but there are a total of 4 ultrasonic programmable gaming buttons on this side alone. 2 on the right side, then we have the textured metal power button sitting on top of the motorized camera, and then of course the output vent for the internal dual fans, which we'll get to in a second, and then the other pair of programmable buttons on the top side. The top of the phone is pretty empty. Then over here on the left side of the phone, we have the metal volume rocker, and one of the 2 USB-C ports. The second USB-C port, of course, is down at the bottom, where it normally is, next to the dual SIM card tray. which has a slot on either side for SIM cards. We'll talk more about the USB-C ports in a second. The back of the phone is interesting, of course. Like a turtle, we've never seen anything quite like it. There are an additional 2 programmable capacitive buttons under that slope of the rear glass leading up to the center camera mountain. All of these rear surfaces, of course, are made from glass, and as we know, a gaming phone can't be a gaming phone without some sweet LED action. There are 2 cameras included on Everest here. One is a 64 megapixel main sensor, and the other is a 16 megapixel wide-angle lens, both protected under that same piece of glass. And of course, the fans, which are both back here as well. Now, supposedly, this fan contraption is specially oriented over the vapor chamber, which helps with heat dissipation. And supposedly, both fans are IP58, meaning that it's protected against water. But we'll have to see how that's even possible from the inside during the teardown video. The fans are pretty quiet, and I can get them going full blast with Rampage mode. They are tiny little guys though, with 29 blades each. The intake fan is spinning at 12,500 RPM, and the exhaust fan is spinning at 15,000 RPM. Lenovo says the fans are capable of lowering the internal temperature of the Qualcomm 888 processor by over 30% compared to other smartphones that have the same chip, which is pretty impressive, and definitely a worthwhile addition to the phone. If I get little pieces of paper sprinkled on my desk, we can see the exhaust fan moving them a little bit, but it's still a pretty small blower. I ripped a thread out of my shirt so we can see it a little clearer, a little wisp blowing in the gentle breeze. A gentle breeze that of course helps you kill your enemies more efficiently. Speaking of vanquishing enemies efficiently, it does take a lot of energy, and the Legion Phone Duel 2 has plenty of that. As you've guessed, there are dual batteries, one on either side of the phone, which is a little worrisome since the dual battery situation didn't work out too well for the ROG Phone 5. But let's keep our fingers crossed that Lenovo's done it better. Both of these ports can be used to charge up the batteries. When I plug in one of the cables, it turns on turbocharging. And when both of them get plugged in, it turns on dual turbocharging, which pumps 90 watts of power into the phone to charge the massive 5,500 mAh battery to 100% in just 30 minutes, which has also got to be some kind of record. Finally, the burn test. We'll make things a little more interesting this time around with a little help from the fans. It's easy to tell that this is the intake by the way it's ingesting the flame internally. Digesting fire is generally frowned upon, but you gotta admit it looks pretty cool. The exhaust vent is also strong enough to blow out my lighter, which is pretty impressive, and at least now we know the fans are good at working in extremely hot environments. The screen of the Duel 2 is a 6.9-inch 1080p display with a 144Hz refresh rate, and most impressively a 720Hz touch sampling rate, which I'm pretty sure is another record. The touch sampling rate is almost more important than the refresh rate while gaming, since it's how fast the screen can sense what your fingers are doing. And then of course the AMOLED display does last for about 33 seconds under the heat from my lighter, and does not fully recover. Now again, fingerprint scanners are not my favorite, but I do have a theory about scanners that don't work very well. Usually it's the flat optical scanners with a wide sensor and no lens that can't read my fingerprint. And since this phone is struggling to even set my fingerprint, it'll be interesting to see if my hypothesis is correct when we open it up from the inside. I'm guessing the optical scanner doesn't have a lens. Now, when I first picked up this phone, I noticed that it's extremely heavy, to the point where I'm not even remotely concerned about it breaking. But, you know, there are some weird shapes and structural designs going on, and, well, turns out there is a weaker gaming phone than the ROG Phone 5. The Legion Phone Duel 2, with its 2 speakers, 2 fans, and 2 batteries, is now most definitely in 2 pieces. The display is shattered and destroyed underneath that Gorilla Glass 5, which surprisingly is still intact. At first close-up glance at the breaking point, it looks like pitted porous metal was the culprit of the break, but it turns out it's a clean snap right along that antenna line, which match up on either side of the glass hump. The antenna lines are usually plastic to allow the phone to get its signal, since antennas don't work well through metal. Unfortunately though, these same antenna lines are also symmetrically mirrored at the other end of the camera mountain, which means the Legion Phone 2 is now the Legion Phone 3, as in it's in 3 pieces. If those antenna lines were positioned differently or reinforced internally, this might have gone differently. The front glass is still intact though. Nice work, Corning. A bad year for gaming phones really shows how well Gorilla Glass holds up. The Legion Phone Duel 2 does not pass my durability test. Now remember, durability is just one aspect of choosing your next phone. A simple case will solve the majority of structural issues. And just because I broke it does not make it a bad phone. It just gives us an idea of what to look out for, and what situations to avoid while owning it. It's a super cool phone, literally and figuratively, internally and externally. Just don't sit on it. The teardown will still be pretty interesting. We'll check out those fans from the inside, as well as the supposedly massive vapor chamber. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Come hang out with me on Instagram and Twitter. And thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.